Hi, I'm Nat. I'm a theologian, and so is Hans Urs von Balthasar, who I today will be taking in conversation with Stephanie Meyer, who wrote the Twilight series. This is going to get lightly heretical, but don't worry. I'll get in trouble. You won't. So I was thinking about Twilight the other day. I wondered who would have been influencing Edward's thinking on souls and love during the years he spent as an immortal being. So I took a brief look at the philosophy that would have surrounded Edward during his time as a vampire. So I chose to have this in conversation with von Balthasar because he only died in 1988, and so it's really, really likely that Edward was aware of his work because he's like one of the most influential theologians of the 20th century. Also, there is a specific quote that speaks exactly to Edward's situation. No eye possesses the possibility or the right to master intellectually the freedom of the thou that comes out to meet him, to deduce and understand ahead of time the way the thou will act. So this is actually exactly what Edward and Alice can do when they're together, which is likely why the Volturi want them so much. But that's a whole other conversation. So you have to realize that because they have this collective power, Edward must feel completely cut off from this key conception from a very, very influential theologian. And Edward clearly cares about theology because he cares about the state of Bella's soul. But Edward was never able to relate to this crucial claim, so he probably thought that he couldn't relate to God at all anymore. The reason that Bella then holds so much power for Edward is that he can't read her mind. This makes her, for him, more of a godlike figure than anyone else has been able to be. She's the only one who he is not more immediately powerful than. And therefore, for the first time in his immortal life, he's actually coming against being able to relate to writings such as von Balthasar's. So it's huge that when we go back to the quote we just read, it goes on immediately to say, I can understand, in quotation marks, with a footnote for understand that says, the moment I claim to have understood the love that another person has for me, i.e., either explaining it on the basis of the laws of human nature or considering myself entitled to it because of my inherent qualities, I have once and for all undermined and falsified that love, and thereby cut off the possibility of reciprocation. This is the first time that Edward cannot understand fully another person, and so it's the first time that he is running into the possibility of having a true reciprocal love in his life. According to von Balthasar, love is basically a miracle. I mean, the book is called Love Alone is Credible, so essentially it says that we don't know what, how, or why love happens, but we know that it does. So this is how you're meant to believe in something that is not able to be fully understood. You are meant to view God in the same way that you are viewing the concept of love. So going back to I have once and for all undermined and falsified that love and thereby cut off the possibility of reciprocation. As soon as you think you understand what the other person is all about and that you totally understand your relationship with them, you're not giving them anything to reciprocate. They can't truly love you if your love is all-encompassing for them. You have to picture love as a two-way street. If you force it into being a one-way because you think you understand and you're like, this is how it works, the street goes this way, if you're not allowing any room, any other possibilities, then you're not letting the other person come back towards you. You're taking up the entire road and they can't get back to you. For Edward, up until he met Bella, this worked out to mean that he was never able to reciprocate a true love. Others would never know him the way that he knew them due to his mind reading. As von Balthasar says, genuine love is always inconceivable, and only thus is it a gift. So I'd like to go back up into our main text here and read the rest of this quote and read more of this quote without the footnote. I can understand a love that has been given to me only as a miracle. I cannot understand it through empirical or transcendental analysis. Edward cannot read Bella's mind. He can only see what Alice sees for her future, but not any of the thoughts that cause that future. And I actually find this to be a very interesting conception of God being omniscient and omnipresent and like outside of time. I'm able to make that connection because I'm drawing on the essential Christian philosophy that we are all in God. When Edward would have been reading this then, he likely, especially with Carlyle's influence, would have made the connection that the abilities he has as a result of becoming a vampire give him the abilities that Christianity claims for God, being omniscient, and once Alice came in the picture, slightly outside the restraints of time. But Edward is not omniscient around Bella, and so he runs into the question of what love, philosophically, can mean. I personally like this explanation. For human creatures, agape, which is Greek for love, is the love that we have for other creatures as an appropriate response to God's love for us. This means that we are recognizing that everyone is an individual, unique personal body, and that they are uniquely made by God in just the same way that we are. And so they deserve the same love that entails. God's love for us would also be called agape, which I find to be a great resonance because it's about recognizing that we all have good in us, that there's that essential core of good that we must all have. Someone, I forget who, said something about the essential unknowability of God, and that the point of God is that we can't comprehend all that God is. This links back to using love to understand, or not, our relationship with God and with others. For von Balthasar, God is the ultimate form of this love that you can never understand. This is kind of a complicated concept, but if you're interested in this point, I made a playlist to illustrate it another way, and you can find that linked down below. Bella, for Edward, represents the ideal of the concept of what agape, or love for a divine being, would be. He's knocked over the head with that realization that this is what love is, because Bella is the only one who will have things that he can never fully know. I will leave with one last comparative quote from Twilight. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. Third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. And from von Balthasar, in the experiences of extraordinary beauty, whether in nature or in art, we are able to grasp a phenomenon in its distinctiveness that otherwise remains veiled. What we encounter in such an experience is as overwhelming as a miracle, something that we will never get over. And yet, it possesses its intelligibility precisely as a miracle. It is something that binds and frees at the same time, since it gives itself unambiguously as the self-manifesting freedom of inner, undemonstrable necessity. If Mozart's Jupiter Symphony has a finale, which is something that I cannot anticipate, derive, or explain on the basis of anything within myself, then it can be only the finale that it has. The symphony possesses its own necessity in this particular form, in which no note could be changed unless it be by Mozart himself. So, yeah, that's how Bella and Edward's relationship represents the concept of agape.